Identify somewhere in, on, and or around the LGBTQIA spectrum that really has, I feel like, no ends and no limitations. Absolutely. I most often, when I'm sort of trying to explain that portion of my identity, I'm like, I'm queer. I'm just a big old queer, and I love being a big old queer. It's true. Like, I am a big old queer, a big old. And it took me a really freaking long time to get to that identity. And not as though I was trying to push myself through spaces to find something that was trendy, or something that was recognized by the rest of the world, but it just took me a really long time to understand that my identity was actually my own. So I got to create it, and I got to choose what I identified with and how I presented myself for whomever, whenever. That it was all about how and what I wanted.
I identify as a fat, queer, Black, kinky, poly femme. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, so I grew up in a very oppressed religion, where you really didn't have your own identity. Your identity was wrapped up in this service attitude. This, you're going to be a wife, bear some children, live this heteronormative lifestyle. And I think, and most importantly, very judgmental. And I think the person I am today is none of those things. I have accepted my queerness. I am okay with my queerness. I have accepted and realizing that my experiences in my past shape who I am, but definitely do not hold me back, if that makes sense. They helped create this person that I am, but I also played a really big part in that as well. So this queer, fat, femme, poly, kinky feminist that sits in front of you today.
Well, I am very proudly queer and trans. I'm a person of color, African American. I am a writer, and there's a big creative community here in Tucson.
I definitely identify as a melanated woman. I think the spectrum as it is very broad now for a reason. I'm kind of getting out of a place where I feel the need to be identified as any one thing.
I identify as a lesbian. Not to say that I can't find a man attractive, but I don't want to be with them. I'm not going to settle down with one.
I've always known that I was Black, of course, Black. And then, especially in elementary school, it was particularly difficult because I went to a predominantly white school, and there was only maybe 5 total Blacks in the entire grade level, and that was challenging. That was back in the 80s. It was hard. That was hard. So I've always known I've been Black. I've always felt like I've carried the Black race on my shoulders. There were certain things I couldn't do. I couldn't be loud. I couldn't, roll my neck. I couldn't speak my mind the way I wanted to, just because of the negative connotations with being that angry Black woman. So that's caused me for a lot of years to subdue myself. And now I'm over it. Now I'm like, hey, I'm Black, I'm here, I have to say what I have to say, and take it how you want to.
I'm African American, and, I'm a lesbian, so I guess there's always 2 different sides to me, and I just kind of want that to be shown. My father, he always I was always the biggest one out of my whole family, and my father, he kind of always kept me on my toes, and he was like, Crystal, if you look good, you feel good. So, that always made me, feel better and just gain confidence on a daily basis. So, not only am I a rapper, but I definitely want to become I want to definitely be a female plus-size model, or female stud model as well. And I kind of want to brand myself to be that figure to let other people be comfortable within their size. it's like, you know, I see that there's a lot of people out there who are like big. Yeah, you know, you're big. I'm big, but I know that at the end of the day, I'm big and beautiful.
I used to identify myself as a stud for the longest time. But over the years, I have grown, experienced certain things, kind of stepped out of my comfort zone with a lot of things. You know, I'm just me. If I want to dress like a girl one day, it's not really me being a femme, or if I dress how I dress athletically like a stud. I pretty much do what I want to do. I guess some people would call it androgynous. I don't really have a label. I just do what I feel like I want to do.
There's a term for it, pansexual. I just learned that there was a term for it. I'm still kind of new to all, like, the officialness of these things. But I've always said consenting adult. So doesn't matter what you look like anywhere. If we find each other attractive, then I am trying to usher you into my bedroom as quickly as possible. I remember this girl telling me, because in the Mormon faith, they take the dark mark on the skin, the curse of Cain, to be actual skin color, whereas most people see it as, you know, some sort of birth defect, a dark mark. So to allow me to not feel excluded from this religion, because I should have been, because I'm going to hell because I'm black, this girl in class explained to me, I don't like chocolate, and the elementary school had white milk and chocolate milk, and she said, you're not black, it's that as a white baby, your parents fed you too much chocolate milk and you turned brown. So you're just, you know, you're just a white baby dipped in chocolate. And that's fine. And as long as you're a good person, like, the chocolate will go away. And I was like, okay, so that makes sense. I'm just a little white baby dipped in chocolate. All right, I just got to be good. And I just must not have been good enough. Because eventually my parents got a divorce and my mother dealt with it for a little while, but very obviously not getting any lighter. And that's, you eventually have to have a conversation with yourself and with your child about why people don't talk to your black daughter in church and why nobody's allowing their sons to date your black daughter. And so she sent me back to my biological family. And it was, it's not something that I would wish on my worst enemy, to be in an environment that tells you this thing you can't control is fundamentally wrong because God said so, and you don't get to go to the celestial kingdom. And the Mormon Church has done a lot to, they've done lots of, like, edicts and announcements, and it's great because, like, the Pope, they can always go back and say, this has changed because God. So the reason that black men were allowed to become priests is because God, you know, changed his mind, luckily, in the 80s. And then to go to this Catholic church that is 99.9% African American, and to meet my grandmother, who is this kick-ass fucking strong black woman who's like, fuck any man that tells you you are worthless, and to be surrounded by so many strong black women and men who are like, this is my wife and she's a doctor and she's amazing, and, you know, I'm lucky to be able to walk next to her. It sort of made me think, okay, my religious upbringings are starting to conflict. I wouldn't say that I believed in the Catholic religion. I was still, you know, thinking as a Mormon. So then I tried to find something that was more liberal and that supported my ideas, because even as a Catholic, I'm still being told you can't like girls. So that's a problem because I know I like girls. So I think I went to, like, paganism, and then it was, like, Buddhism. In New York City, I met this guy who was a Satanist in the, you know, like, ironic Satanist way where they're just kind of being assholes. And he seemed a little too extreme because he's that like angry atheist, and I was like, nah, man, you're weird. But when I met this girl in Tucson, she was talking about going to this atheist thing. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but she seems like a really cool person. I want to hang out with her more. So I'll just go to the thing. And so we ended up at this restaurant. And I assumed it was going to be like, I don't know, all angry white men in some dark basement somewhere, just like yelling about the Bible and stuff like that. And I walk in and it's like these cute couples, and there's like somebody's 16-year-old doing their homework, and, you know, older people, younger people. And I think if it would have been in a basement somewhere with just a bunch of angry dudes, like that guy I met in New York, I never would have looked into, and I don't want to say what atheists believe, but what atheism is. I don't think I would have looked into myself anymore. And the discussion group was just really nice. And I remember people asking me, you know, how do you identify? And I was like, meh, I just want to be a good person. They're like, oh, okay. And they're like, do you believe in God? And I'm like, meh, I don't know. And it just, I started thinking about it. And I started thinking pretty hard and pretty fast. And I was like, I don't think I do have a belief in a higher power. And I think it's just about being a good person. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm an atheist. And I guess that's an okay thing to be. And I'm not going to like go eat babies or burn down a church, or there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm a student at the University of Arizona, currently studying Africana Studies and dance as a double major. Dance is, in the arts world, it's considered broken down in 3 classical levels. There's ballet, and there's modern, and there's jazz. And people who are mostly within those realms consider ballet to be the mother of all dance. I disagree with that statement because I feel like African dance is the mother of all dance. That's when you get into subgenres. I don't consider them technically subgenres, but some people call them subgenres. So then you can get into indigenous dance, there's African, there's salsa, there's Caribbean, there's hip hop. I consider like hip hop and house to be indigenous dance because it birthed from the new form of Black culture in America.
I am an avid reader. I love to read. I love to read. I love books. If you want to love on me, buy me books. Especially any sci-fi books by Black authors. There is not a lot of them, and I probably read all of them, but I love to read. So my favorite genre will be sci-fi. Like I love Octavia Butler and Tananarive Due. Those are like my 2 favorite authors. I started off on the clarinet just because my mom played clarinet in high school, but it didn't make enough noise for me. So I had her go out and buy me a trombone. So that is my principal. When I went to college for 2 years, that was my principal in music ed, was trombone. I played sousaphone, which is a tuba for marching band. I played euphonium, baritone, which is somewhat of the same instrument, but there's a couple different things here and there. I played snare drum, all of the percussion section. I write cadences for percussion ensembles. And then in the wintertime, when you're outside of marching band, I learned how to play cello. So I do play that as well. I got a mean ham bone game. I mean, I bust it out.
Yeah, I'm a writer. I'm a poet. My subject matter, identity is in there, like, throughout. I have done a lot of genealogical research, like looking into my lineage, and so for a while there, like that was, and it still is in there quite a bit, but that was like a focal point for me, writing about, you know, long lost connections to grandparents, and I wrote a piece called Pale Grandfathers, which was a piece in quote unquote dedication to all of the white grandfathers in my lineage who I could not uncover. I could not find their names, and of course, we know history and the reasons why those names are not there.
Proficient as a dancer in the genres of hip-hop, jazz, ballet, tap, modern, and African dance. I got inspired to start playing the violin through watching YouTube videos of really amazing violinists doing their thing on stage. Just the response that they were getting from the audience and the way they were feeling up on stage, sort of energy charged, feeling pushed to do their best, motivated me to start playing because I like attention. I like drawing attention. I like giving the audience back the energy that they're giving me. It's sort of like a give and take that you have with the audience when you're playing on stage or dancing on stage, for that matter, and that's what keeps me going.
I feel that the work that I do, especially my writing, is my way of, my ancestors' way of speaking through me, through my writing, reclaiming oral traditions. I look at spoken word as an oral tradition of Black folks, and that's our way of honoring our ancestors. And so being intentional about how I write, the rhythm and cadence of my writing, and then performing it, for me, I feel that my ancestors are there.
I love to hop on my bike and go down to the Rito. I feel like I'm flying. I don't know, even though I'm probably not going that fast. I got a little speedometer thing. I'm doing like 17 miles per hour. It's not that fast, but I feel like I'm flying. I participate in yoga. I was one of those non-believers where, yoga's not a real workout, but if you do some real yoga and it's at a faster pace, you gonna work up a sweat. I like the tone, the definition that it's also given this lovely figure here.
I'm a realist. I mean, everything that I rap about is, real. Definitely more of a, people can relate to rather than I'm driving around in a brand new car because I'm not, or I'm flashing money because, I'm working just like everybody else is.
I'd say I was probably around 13 or 14 when I just kind of started writing pieces, poems that I thought had to rhyme. And once I got into high school, I got into a creative writing class, and that kind of opened my mind up more to what I could do as a writer. And I actually was published when I was 17 3 or 4 times. So I'm also very much into photography. I bought a new camera at the beginning of the year. That was a really big purchase, something I really wanted to do. I finally got some new tech that I can kind of get more in depth with my camera with, and I'm really excited to expand my photography portfolio for sure.
My experiences in Tucson as an African American woman, I would say have been all right. I haven't experienced any any blatant racism or anything like that. The one thing that does irritate me the most that I do experience in Tucson, because I look the way that I do, I have my hair the way that it is. Oftentimes before I cut it, I would have it up in various styles, and I would always get asked, "Is that all your hair?"
City life on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a really great city, I would say it's like a 5. It's like really in between. You have the college life and you have the retirement part. Now the in between, you just kind of have to figure out where you fit in at. So it's a lot slower than other cities I lived in. But I like the diversity. It's just not white and black. You have Asians, you have Native Americans, you have so many different cultures here, and I like that.
My experience in Tucson, I would say start before Tucson. Being in the military for 7 years, I was 19 when I joined and 26 when I got out. I never really had a boyfriend or went on dates, so it was difficult when I did get out of the military to make friends, straight or gay, in LA. And coming to Tucson, I thought it would be a little bit better, but I found that it was kind of the same type of situation. People wanted what they wanted, or they already had friends, already were in relationships. I remember my first event for like in the LGBT community, was Pride here in Tucson. And there was an older gentleman who propositioned me for sex without even asking my name, which is asking if I wanted to go to his car, to his house, and I was like, oh wow, like thank you, but no thank you.
When I was first working in the queer community here in Tucson, there was an African American woman who I really looked up to a lot, and she was also queer, and she was a leader in the community, and I think she probably was, you know, still be classified as a leader. And I would think about, you know, being around coworkers who would think that, you know, oh, you know, she's so edgy, she's so hard to get along with, you know, I have a hard time understanding her or reading her. And I'm thinking, well, of course you would. You know, you don't know what this woman has had to go through, you know, as a Black queer woman in the station that she's in, you know, to be a leader in this community. And, you know, that was pretty early on in my experiences with the queer community here in Tucson. And so it started to tell me a lot about what I could expect and what would be safe for me to share, you know, which aspects of myself could I expect to be palatable for people.
I used to have an afro, and I went from relaxed hair to about, it was, you know, shoulder length. And then one day I came in and I had this teeny weeny little afro, and suddenly people were like, "Oh, what's that?" And they would thrust their hair in or hands into my tiny little fro. I just sort of stood there and would freak out about like people touching me. In fact, the worst thing that absolutely ever happened that involved my fro and just a lack of diversity. All right, don't cry, America. I almost got fired over my afro. And it was hopefully just, you know, ignorance and miseducation rather than any true harm. But I got a call from HR that said my hair was nappy and unprofessional. And so I had to go into HR, and I'm trying to talk to this woman in HR, and I'm, you know, I've got my old badge picture which has my relaxed hair on it, and she's like, well, why can't you just go back to that? It's like, because I don't have that hair anymore. It's been shaved off, and this is how my hair naturally grows. And she made it seem like unless I made a major change that I was going to lose my job. So I go back to my lab and I tell my boss, who at the time was like this 65-year-old white man, and I'm in tears. And he says, that's absolutely unacceptable. Don't even worry about it. I'll fix this problem. So the next time that I have to go to HR, because I've explained to the woman that this is how my hair naturally grows the fuck out of my head, she said, I'll do some research and we'll get back to you. And, so he found a couple Black surgeons that were like residents or something. And he found a white woman upstairs in the lab that has these waist-length dreadlocks. And they're not pretty dreadlocks. They're huge and kind of like a bird's nest, and it's just sort of weird. And she's been with the company like 10 or 12 years or something. And so these people are all sort of explaining about natural hair and the way these things work, and, you know, how she got her hair to dread, and why this woman's hair, you know, is long and silky, and why my hair is natural. And the woman does eventually apologize, and she's like, I'm so sorry, but, you know, we do have dress code standards, and I just needed to address this, but now it's not a problem. You're fine. You go about your day. And that has just been something that stuck with me, that I was so proud to finally like accept the way my natural hair was. And my first major interaction is go back to relaxing it or you're going to lose your job.
There is a community here. It's a small community for the Black LGBTQ. It's one of those things we don't bond as well as we should. We don't make the effort to meet each other. One is because we often don't see each other, and then on other occasions we often don't associate with each other. We get into our own little groups and our own little cliques, and then we kind of shun everybody else away. And it's funny because there's this little family of ours. We call ourselves the Black Barbies because we all have this own little persona of ourselves, and it's all guys right now. We have like some of our girls, but it's a group of guys, and we get together and we go out to have lunch and we go out to the bars together, and we're just trying to build our community together, because oftentimes we see other black guys in the bar, or we see other black individuals out, and we try to bring them in and say, hey, who are you, where are you from? A lot of guys come from out of town. We'd be like, oh, okay, we see you. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, we still have those individuals who are just so, or who they think they're just above everybody else, and I hate that in the community. I know some of us carry ourselves in that manner, but then some of us really act in that manner. Mm-hmm. And I want people to understand you can't forget where you come from, but you also can't let the past hold you down.
A community that can sort of encompass everything that you are, rather than having to split yourself up into different pieces in order to fit into a more narrowly focused group. So I think that's sort of the struggle of being Black and queer in Tucson, is either deliberately going out and making those connections and making that community happen and actively participating in that effort, or sort of denying certain aspects of your identity to find someone else that fits with another part of you.
I would say it's difficult at times because there is so much internalized racism within myself that I'm having to deal with. And then also, I think when I was first exposed to the queer community, it was very white. Well, when I looked at queer, when I first looked up queer, I thought it automatically meant white people. Like I didn't know that queerness could mean everyone.
Lately, I haven't seen too much of that. It's like it quieted down. So I've been looking, and honestly, this is the closest thing that I have got to our community or things thriving for people of color in Tucson. It's rare, besides you guys that I met, certain people at the Black Lives Matter march, maybe. But most of the time, no. I have not been connected with a lot of people like that. Sometimes I think I'm too deep for certain people. So, I mean, hopefully, as years progress, I can find more people to connect with and vibe with about that can be aware. Because, honestly, I know a lot of gay, lesbian, Black people, but we have not really connected as being aware. Even knowing a little bit of history about the gay community. Things people such as Harvey Milk understanding things like that. So it's rare if I do. So not too much.
I haven't really tried to fit in to the LGBT community here in Tucson. So that is a question to be determined.
When I think about whether I've been able to dig deep into those communities, definitely the queer community. I feel like, as I mentioned before, like Tucson is big in that way. Trans community is, yeah, in a way. I feel like for me, my transition has been such an intensely personal process that when I think about building community, as a trans person, for me it might look a little different than it might look for other people.
Tucson definitely is a very friendly community, I think, and I think that my experiences has been pretty good because I only surround myself with positive people doing positive things, so that always gives you a good view on life and everything.
I know for me, I try to make sure that people meet other people of color, gay people of color, just so that we can all get together and know that you're not here by yourself and that you do have a community, because again, I am really big on community and creating community.
When I think about the way that I take care of my body and the way I want to help my community heal is very much based in my indigenous heritage. And so wanting people of color to begin drumming again, wanting people of color to learn how to dance and sing and move as a form of healing. Movement's very powerful, and there's a lot that talk therapy can do for someone, and a lot of things that Western medicine can do for someone. And there's a reason why people of color are starting to reclaim a lot of our indigenous practices, because our neural system, our like cells are asking us to reclaim that movement. Start drumming, start singing, start dancing, start holding each other and touching each other in healing ways. And so I'm hoping to open up a wellness center, Transitions Wellness and Healing Center, where we're using a lot of our traditional practices to heal ourselves, as well as some westernized medicine, but really getting people to move, getting people to sing, getting people to even cry together. You know, we don't cry together, but create a space where we can be together as people of color, as queer folks, as non-queer folks, as trans folks, as non-trans folks, and heal.
I think it's important to have visibility. It's so important because I think seeing Black queer people in mainstream media, that's not something you see normally. Or I think being able to recognize and relate to people, you can see someone who's like, I've gone through similar experiences and they're like me and they survived. I think that visibility is really, really important, and there's a lack of representation, especially for Black queer people.
I think that we all need to have understanding for each other, have understanding and have a respect for each other, to not necessarily put those things down that are different. I'm not trying to change anything about you. I know that's one thing that I kind of hear a lot. The gays want everybody to be gay. I don't want anybody to be gay that's not gay. Like, why would I want somebody to be something that they're not? I am who I am, and that's just it. So that's just my biggest thing about this. I figured it'll be a nice way to just talk and get the word out, and hopefully it'll change somebody's life.
It's very important for to have spaces where people feel safe to share and be able to just navigate this thing called life together, because there are some things that will happen in like Black queer spaces that might not happen in white queer spaces. And so we need a place so that we can come together and share, and also talk about how we can overcome that. How can we continue to navigate in those spaces in a healthy way? And it's also a part of our self-care to be able to like just relax and, you know, get some things off of your chest and be able to see each other and celebrate each other, celebrate the beauty of each other, when like we always constantly are getting messages saying that there's something wrong with us and there's something that is not right. And so it's nice to have that community of people who look like you and understands that it's navigating this world like you are, to be able to talk to them and be able to just relax with them and share that space with them.
I think creative endeavors. I think it's important for a community to create together. I think a lot of different creative avenues, whether it's poetry or art or something like that, are sort of a means of healing. So I think that the community can heal itself through sort of collective creativity. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, I guess really for me, like the biggest part about this was just realizing, like, I didn't just wake up one day and realize, like, I didn't just wake up one day because I had done all the things I needed to do to be whole. Like, I always was whole. It was sussing that out and pulling that out from the rest of the world around me, to see my own wholeness, because I think at least it was very easy for me to have my reflection refracted and fractured by all of the light, by all of the spaces that were around me. And it took a while to realize that, oh, like that really is just a reflection and a refraction. Like I'm not broken, right? So I don't need to be mended. I'm whole. There may be nicks and chips and bumps and bruises, and I'm not even so sure for me, like patching them up in this sense of smoothing it out and making the blemish disappear is not a thing that I pride myself on doing. I enjoy carrying my scars and my blemishes and my cracks and those like deep rivets, because those are a part of me, and it gives me space to keep lots of lovely and wonderful things in. It's like my special little pockets. But that also then becomes this space from which I then learn how to move with this new thing. And so it doesn't become a hindrance or this thing that is just attached to my ankle as though it's some weight. It becomes the fabric of wings. And so yeah, I mean, I guess that's really for me, like sort of trying to answer in this pseudo surface but yet not surface way, the answer I want to give that has some meaning, but also just being super mindful that like I feel like personally I have lived this convoluted, complex, super simplistic, overly intrinsic, like I've lived this life that has been the stuff that I'm pretty sure, like I should write a biography. I'm pretty sure I should write a movie or something one day. But at the end of that, and in the midst of all of that, like it's, to me, sometimes it just becomes almost laughable at how, when I really look at the core of who I am, that hasn't changed since I was like 5. And it probably was the same even before then, right? But like, that's the time that I remember, like all the things I've gone through. And so there are definitely, so right, like those outer layers and the way that those roots sort of grab hold of the core, that's absolutely shifted. But the core of who I am, it's pretty much remained the same. I've always been this wonderfully weird human that I love. And that has been good and good enough for me.
I'm black, and a fact I'm black.